Roughly 240,000 Americans over the age of 60 will have a mini stroke this year and will not realize it happened. About 1 in 3 of them will have a major stroke within the following 90 days. Many of those major strokes happen within the first 48 hours. The window to stop the second one, the big one, opens the moment the first one ends. And most people sleep right through that window because the first one didn't hurt, didn't last long, and looked like nothing at all. Tonight, I want to walk you through exactly what happens to your brain in the hours, days, and years after a mini stroke that nobody took seriously. I am going to show you the 3-minute window where intervention changes everything. And I am going to be honest with you about what you can still reverse, what you can slow down, and what you cannot get back if you wait. This is one of the few topics in medicine where the system genuinely makes more money treating you sick than catching you early. So let me give you the time the standard 15-minute appointment doesn't. Let me describe the moment most people miss. You are at the kitchen sink. You feel your right hand go heavy for maybe 40 seconds. The cup you were holding doesn't fall, but it almost does. You set it down. Your face feels strange on one side, not painful, just absent, like the cheek belongs to someone else. You wonder if you slept on it wrong. By the time you walk into the next room, the feeling is gone. You sit down. You think it was nothing. That moment, the moment you sit down and decide it was nothing, is the most dangerous decision you may ever make in your 60s. What just happened in your brain has a medical name, a transient ischemic attack, or TIA. The word transient is the word that fools you. It means the symptoms went away. It does not mean the cause went away. I want you to picture it like this. Imagine a smoke alarm in your kitchen that goes off for 40 seconds and then stops on its own. Most people would assume it was a sensor glitch, maybe steam from the kettle, maybe a moth. But sometimes that alarm is picking up real heat from a frayed wire behind the wall, a wire that is still hot, still arcing, still building toward a real fire. The alarm silenced itself. The danger did not. That is exactly what your brain just did. A tiny clot, or a small piece of plaque, briefly blocked the blood supply to one part of your brain. Your body broke it up, blood returned, symptoms cleared, but the artery that produced the clot is still there. The plaque that fragmented is still there. The conditions that allowed it to happen once will allow it to happen again, and the second time may not clear on its own. Now, I want to pause and tell you something about the psychology of that moment at the kitchen sink. Your brain, the very organ that is in trouble, is also the organ that decides whether you take it to a doctor. And in the seconds right after a mini stroke, your brain prefers a calming explanation. It would rather believe you slept on your arm wrong than confront the possibility that something was just blocked inside it. This is normal, it is human, and it is also exactly why mini strokes go unreported. The very person experiencing the event is the least equipped to call it for what it is. This is why a spouse, a daughter, a son, who notices a strange minute in their parent, that person matters more than they realize. Here is what is happening biologically in the first hour after the event clears. Microscopic damage has already occurred in the neighborhood of brain tissue that briefly lost blood. Not enough to cause obvious disability yet. The brain is also releasing inflammatory signals that, oddly, make the next clot more likely to stick to the same spot. This is the window where most people feel completely fine, and so most people do nothing. If this is the kind of explanation you have been looking for, the kind your last appointment didn't have time for, keep watching. We are going to get into the parts almost no one explains carefully. Here is the number that should change the way you think about this. In a landmark study published in The Lancet in 2007, researchers tracked patients who had walked away from what looked like a mini stroke. They found that within 48 hours of that first event, roughly 5% went on to have a full stroke. Within the first 7 days, that number rose to about 10%. Within 90 days, somewhere between 10 and 17% had a major stroke, many of them disabling, some of them fatal. Let me put those numbers in plain language. If 100 people walked away from a mini stroke and did nothing, 10 to 17 of them would have a major stroke within 3 months. And the highest concentration of that risk lives in the first 2 days. So what is actually happening inside your body in those 48 hours? Think back to the smoke alarm. The alarm has gone quiet, but the frayed wire behind the wall is still arcing, and now the insulation around it is starting to soften. Each small electrical event makes the next one more likely. The brain works the same way. After a TIA, the inner lining of the affected artery becomes inflamed, sticky, more likely to catch another clot. Platelets cluster more easily on the rough surface. Blood pressure spikes become much more dangerous because the artery wall has been weakened from the inside. There is a second mechanism most people never hear about. After a mini stroke, your blood-brain barrier, the protective filter that keeps harmful substances out of your brain tissue, becomes temporarily leakier. This is one reason a second event causes far more damage than the first. The brain's defenses are down. This is also the time when symptoms can briefly return, sometimes for seconds, sometimes for a strange day or two of mild confusion, slight word-finding trouble, or simply feeling off. People blame poor sleep. They blame their medication. They blame the weather. They blame their age. It is not the weather. It is the artery telling you it is not finished yet. There is one more piece to this stage. If you are the partner, the daughter, or the son of someone in their 60s or 70s, you may be the one who notices something the person themselves cannot. A momentary glaze in the eyes, a sentence that came out half-finished, a hand that fumbled with a coffee cup for 1 second longer than usual. These are the things the person experiencing them tends to dismiss. You are the outside observer. Trust what you see. If something looked off, even for 15 seconds, say so. Out loud, that same day. There is also one myth I want to dismantle clearly because it can do real harm. Many people hear mini stroke and reach immediately for the aspirin bottle. The thinking goes, if it thins the blood, it must help. The truth is more careful. Aspirin can be appropriate, yes, but only after a clinician has confirmed the event was indeed ischemic and not a small bleed. Roughly 15% of strokes are hemorrhagic, caused by bleeding inside the brain, not clotting, and aspirin in those cases makes things worse, not better. Do not self-medicate based on a guess. Get the imaging first, then start the medication. Now let me show you what happens if you keep walking past these signs. Within the first year after an untreated TIA, your risk of a major stroke is roughly 5 to 10 times higher than someone your age who has not had one. By year 5, somewhere around 25 to 30% of people who had a single ignored mini stroke will have either a major stroke or another serious cardiovascular event, most often a heart attack, because the same plaque process that breaks off pieces aimed at your brain also breaks off pieces aimed at your heart. But the part that does not get talked about enough is what I would call the slow version. Not every untreated TIA becomes a dramatic, hospitalized stroke. Some become a long, quiet erosion of your brain's white matter, the wiring that connects regions of thought, memory, balance, and movement. You will not feel a big event. You will notice over months that your memory feels foggier. You will lose words mid-sentence more often. You will trip slightly on stairs you used to take without thinking. You will tire by mid-afternoon. Your balance will shift. Your mood will dip. This is called vascular cognitive decline. In a 2019 study published in the journal Neurology, researchers found that adults over 60 with a history of even one undiagnosed TIA showed measurable cognitive changes within 2 to 4 years compared to matched peers without one. You feel it happen, you just do not connect it to that 40-second moment at the kitchen sink 3 years ago when your hand went heavy and you set down the cup. This is the slow version of what people fear most. And this is the version that the 3-minute window can interrupt. Now we come to the most important part of this video. There is a tool emergency physicians use to identify a stroke or mini stroke in progress. It is called FAST. Each letter stands for a check you can do in about 3 minutes. F is for face. A is for arms. S is for speech. T is for time. If you run these 3 checks anytime you suspect something is off for yourself, for your spouse, for a parent, for a friend at lunch, you can detect a stroke or mini stroke during the window when treatment can still reverse it. Here is exactly what you do. F face. Smile in a mirror or ask the person to smile at you. Look at both sides. In a stroke or TIA, one side of the mouth often does not lift the way the other side does. The droop can be subtle, just a corner that lags slightly behind, but it is there. If you can't tell from a smile, ask the person to show their teeth. You will see an asymmetry that was not there yesterday. A arms. Raise both arms straight out in front of you, palms facing up, eyes closed. Hold them there for 10 seconds. In a stroke or TIA, one arm will drift downward on its own or rotate so the palm faces inward. The person almost never notices this happening. You have to watch from outside. S speech. Say a simple sentence out loud. Something like, "The sky is blue today." Listen for slurring. Listen for words coming out in the wrong order. Listen for trouble starting the sentence at all. Slurred speech without alcohol is almost always neurological. Tea time. The moment any one of those 3 signs is present even briefly, you call emergency services. Not your doctor, not your son, not tomorrow morning. You call 911 and you say the words, "I think I am having a stroke," or "I think my husband is having a stroke." That phone call is the 3-minute window. Here is why time matters this much. The treatments that can actually dissolve a clot, medications like alteplase, sometimes called TPA, only work within roughly 4.5 hours of the moment the stroke began. The faster you get to the hospital, the more brain you keep. There is a phrase in stroke medicine, time is brain. For every minute a major stroke goes untreated, somewhere around 1.9 million neurons die. But even if the event clears on its own, even if you are sure it was a TIA and not the big one, the call is still right, because hospitals can do something on the same day that no home plan can do. They can image your brain and your arteries. They can find the source. They can start the medications that prevent the next event from arriving. This is the moment in this video to pause and do one small thing. Subscribe not as a favor to me, but as a way to keep the next video in your feed. Each one of these mechanisms connects to the next, and this is the kind of channel where the next video may be the one that matters most for someone you love. Now let me show you what happens after the call, and what you can do in the days and weeks after to make sure the big one does not arrive. The first thing the hospital will do is image your brain, usually with an MRI, and image your arteries, often with what is called a carotid ultrasound or a CT angiogram. They are looking for 2 things: how much damage has already occurred, and where the clot or plaque came from. There are typically 3 sources. The first is the carotid arteries, the 2 large blood vessels in your neck that supply most of your brain. If plaque has built up there to a significant degree, your clinician may discuss a procedure to clear it. The second source is the heart itself. An irregular rhythm called atrial fibrillation can throw small clots toward the brain, and if you have it, a conversation about blood-thinning medication is almost certain. Many people over 70 have undiagnosed atrial fibrillation. They have never felt the flutter. The first they hear of it is at this kind of appointment. The third source is what doctors call small vessel disease, the tiny arteries deep inside the brain weakened over years by high blood pressure, uncontrolled blood sugar, and chronic inflammation. For all 3, the aftercare includes several things you can begin asking about with your clinician. And please notice my word asking. I am not telling you to start or stop anything on your own. I am giving you the language to bring into the room. The first is blood pressure. Tight control matters more than almost anything else. Research published in the journal Stroke in 2018 found that bringing systolic blood pressure to under 130 in patients who had a TIA reduced the risk of a second event by roughly 30%. The second is cholesterol, specifically LDL, the kind that builds plaque. After a TIA, current guidelines from the American Heart Association generally support pulling LDL well below 70 in many patients. The exact target is a conversation to have with your clinician. The third is blood sugar. Even mildly elevated fasting blood sugar, what is sometimes called prediabetes, accelerates damage to the small arteries in your brain. A hemoglobin A1C above 6 is a number worth asking about in the same visit. The fourth is rhythm. If your heart has ever skipped, fluttered, or felt irregular even once, even years ago, that is worth investigating with a wearable monitor. Atrial fibrillation can be silent for years and still throw clots. The fifth, and this is the one most overlooked, is sleep. Untreated sleep apnea is one of the strongest accelerators of stroke risk in adults over 60. If you snore heavily, gasp at night, or wake up tired despite 8 hours in bed, that is worth raising with your clinician at the same visit. Beyond medication, the research is clear on a few daily habits that genuinely matter. Walking at a moderate pace for 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, reduces stroke recurrence in TIA patients. A largely plant-leaning eating pattern, sometimes called the Mediterranean pattern, has consistent data behind it. Bringing salt intake down toward 1,500 milligrams a day if your blood pressure runs high. These sound small. They are not. In aggregate, they cut the 5-year stroke recurrence rate by somewhere between 30 and 50% in studies that have followed them for years. Let me also give you a small piece of practical preparation. When you go to that appointment, bring 3 things with you. 1, the exact details of the episode, when it started, how long it lasted, which side of the body was affected, what symptoms you felt. Write it down before you go. Memory is unreliable, especially under the stress of a medical visit. 2, your blood pressure log from the last 2 weeks, if you have one. If you don't have one, start tomorrow. Buy a home cuff, take it morning and evening, and bring the numbers in. 3, a list of every medication and supplement you take, with the doses. Pharmacists can help you assemble this if you are not sure. Walking in with these 3 things changes the appointment from a guessing game into a conversation. Now, I want to be honest with you about something. Most videos in this space will not be. Some of this is reversible, some of it is not. What reverses? With good post-event care, the inflammation in the artery wall calms down within weeks. The blood-brain barrier seals back up. The 48-hour risk window closes. If you started with 1 mini stroke, and you act on it, you can return to a risk level much closer to your baseline within 6 to 12 months. What plateaus? The small white matter changes you may already have from prior events you didn't catch. These do not get worse if you control the underlying causes, but they do not heal back to what they were. Your brain can route around them, this is called neuroplasticity, but the wiring underneath stays scarred. What does not come back? Neurons lost to a major stroke. This is the line you do not want to cross. The protocol I just walked you through is designed from start to finish to keep you on the right side of that line. I tell you this not to frighten you, but to make the urgency match the reality. The 3-minute window is real, and in medical terms, it is generous. Most serious conditions do not give you a window this clearly marked red flag. Before we move toward closing, I want to be very clear about which signs mean you stop watching this video, pick up the phone, and call emergency services right now, tonight, this minute, no waiting. Any sudden weakness or numbness on one side of the body, face, arm, leg, or any combination, even if it goes away within seconds. Any sudden trouble speaking, understanding speech, or finding the right word. Any sudden vision change in one eye, like a curtain dropping, or a sudden blurring you cannot blink away. Any sudden severe headache, unlike any you have had before, often described as the worst headache of my life. Any sudden loss of balance, unexplained dizziness, or trouble walking that comes on within minutes. These signs, even if they pass within seconds, are reasons to call 911. Not to call your doctor's office, not to wait until morning. Not to see if it happens again. That is not being dramatic. That is using the 3-minute window the way it was designed to be used. And please do not drive yourself. Do not let your spouse drive you. The reason emergency services exist is that they can begin treatment in the ambulance. Every minute the car ride costs you is a minute of brain you do not get back. I want to share one more thing before we close. In a case report published in 2021 in the journal Cerebrovascular Diseases, a research team described a recurring pattern they had seen across dozens of patients in their stroke clinic. The pattern went like this. The person had one brief episode, usually under 2 minutes, of one-sided weakness or numbness. They told no one. The next day, they felt completely normal. 3 to 10 days later, they had a major stroke that left them with lasting disability. The team called this pattern the silent prequel. The mini stroke was the prequel. The major stroke was the feature film. And in case after case, the prequel had gone unreported, sometimes because the person was alone, sometimes because they assumed it was fatigue, sometimes because they were embarrassed to mention something they thought was so small. I want you to hear that and hear it clearly. Nothing about a TIA is too small to mention. Nothing about it is embarrassing. The 40 seconds you almost dropped a cup is not nothing. It is your brain telling you, very politely, that it would like your help before it has to ask less politely. Before we close, one thing I am going to ask of every viewer. Tell me your age in the comments. 60s, 70s, 80s. The mechanisms in this video shift slightly across those decades. After 70, for example, atrial fibrillation becomes a much larger driver, and the protocol changes accordingly. The more I know about who is watching, the more precisely I can write the next one. So just drop your decade below that is all I ask. And while you are there, tell me where you are watching from. Knowing the geography helps too. I want to leave you with this. The 3-minute window is the most forgiving piece of medicine your body offers you in your 60s and 70s. Almost no other serious condition gives you that long a warning, that clearly, that consistently. The brain almost always whispers before it shouts. The whisper is the mini stroke. The shout is the one that takes something from you that does not come back. If something has happened to you in the last few months that you brushed off a strange minute of heaviness in one hand, a moment when your face felt wrong in the mirror, a sentence that came out scrambled, a second, when your vision went dim in one eye, please bring it up with your clinician this week. Not in 3 months at your physical, this week. Tell them when it happened, how long it lasted, which side. Ask them whether imaging is appropriate. That is the conversation that interrupts the timeline. Take care of your brain. It is the only one you have. I will see you in the next one.